The Yankees acquire Aroldis Chapman. Are they now the team to beat in the AL East? What's going on, everybody? I'm John Check with Baseball Central, here today to discuss the Yankees acquiring Aroldis Chapman from the Cincinnati Reds. The Yankees made a huge free agent splash, one of the many moves they've made this offseason. Perhaps their biggest move, arguably their biggest move, acquiring Aroldis Chapman from the Cincinnati Reds for 4 minor league prospects. Now, this move comes without controversy. Aroldis Chapman earlier this year was originally traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers, but the trade was eventually dropped by the Dodgers because there was a report of domestic violence case that was against Aroldis Chapman of allegedly choking his girlfriend and firing a deranged gunshot. And the police were eventually called out to his house, and that was a little too much for the Dodgers to take on, and the trade eventually fell through. There was never really any set in stone of what the prospects were for the Dodgers side that was going over to the Reds. So we don't know the multitude of the trade, how big it would have been, but it definitely hurt the Cincinnati Reds asking price. Now, the Yankees did try to acquire Aroldis Chapman last year at the trade deadline. It never went through because the Cincinnati Reds were trying to get guys like Luis Severino and Aaron Judge, and the Yankees don't want to move those guys because, for once, the Yankees actually have some decent prospects to actually play with, and they're trying to get younger, which the Starlin Castro move obviously was a big move towards, trying to get younger, having him at second base, and of course still got guys like Greg Bird and Robert F. Schneider and whatnot to help out on their team. So the Yankees finally got the Cincinnati Reds to budge on their asking price, and they traded 4 prospects. The guys that they traded aren't guys that are expected to be. They're not guys that are top 10 prospects, top 20 prospects, which the Cincinnati Reds were asking for. I'm talking about overall minor league baseball, guys such as Luis Severino and whatnot. So the Yankees finally got the Reds to budge on their asking price, and the Reds really didn't have much of a choice but to budge on their asking price, because let's think about it. You got a guy that he's been in trouble with the law before, driving on a suspended license, getting pulled over doing 90. I mean, they had to budge. They wanted to move this guy. Now, the Reds, they're a team that are in an obvious rebuild. They dealt Todd Frazier. They almost had Brandon Phillips dealt to the Nationals, but the Nationals refused to sign Brandon Phillips to extension after the trade, so they eventually moved on from him and acquired Daniel Murphy. So they traded him. So now Todd Frazier's gone. They're obviously working on moving Jay Bruce. They traded Mike Leake last year. Joey Votto isn't going anywhere. So they're a team that's an obvious rebuild, and they're trying to get younger and to try to acquire as many prospects as they can to try to hit on some of these guys. But the Red Sox are basically trying to become the Kansas City Royals, which the Royals, with this new formula of having as many good bullpen pitchers at the back end and having a decent starting rotation with just a couple of okay pitchers at the top, basically trying to make game 6 innings. This is like Moneyball Part 2 is pretty much what this is. When Oakland in the early 2000s acquiring guys, like if you ever read the book or saw the movie, which is not good, by the way, you should read the book because the book is a lot better than the movie. The Oakland A's, they put emphasis, if you don't know what Moneyball is, but everyone does pretty much at this point, but they put emphasis on certain statistics that teams overlooked, and they got players at a discounted rate that they shouldn't have got them at, and helped fill the void for good players that they couldn't afford to resign. Now, the Royals have taken this model where they got guys like Wade Davis and at the time Greg Holland and guys like Calvin Herrera, and they took a flyer on someone like Ryan Madsen, and they had guys like Tim Collins before he got hurt, and Danny Duffy and Luke Hochevar. All these guys they put in the back of the bullpen, put all these good arms or guys that were failed starters like a Wade Davis or Danny Duffy, and put them in the back end of their bullpen. And they've basically taken games and shortened them down to 6 innings to where they can make up for a pitching staff that doesn't have as much depth as they'd like. And they went to the World Series 2 years in a row with this theory, and they won it last year with this theory. And the San Francisco Giants in 2010, if you can remember that far back, they did the same thing against the Texas Rangers. If you can remember, the Texas Rangers were an outstanding offensive team in 2010. I mean, Josh Hamilton was the MVP that year. They were just an amazing offensive squad. They were outstanding with Ian Kinsler and Elvis Andrews, and I mean they were good. But the Giants, they had a great bullpen in the back end, fronted by Brian Wilson, was the premier reliever. So the Yankees, who had a very good bullpen last year, with guys like Justin Wilson and Adam Warren, and obviously the two-headed monster in the back, Dylan Betances and Andrew Miller. They won as many games because pitching wasn't really their strong point. They don't have that strong rotation. They were decimated by injuries. Tanaka last year pitched healthy. Was healthy, but he was hurt the year before, so there's kind of some questions of how good he was going to be. And obviously, CC Sabathia, his season was shortened by his alcohol problems, and Michael Pineda suffered through some injuries, and Von Nova was hurt. And Luis Severino came up and gave some quality innings, so there's some brightness there. Nathan Eovaldi was he was decent. So with this, the Yankees, you look at their current rotation, and it's very iffy looking at their current pitching staff. But adding someone like Aroldis Chapman, the 5 highest guys in baseball right now among relievers with 60 innings pitched with the highest swing and miss percentage, Dylan Betances, Andrew Miller, and Aroldis Chapman are in the top 4. You have those 3 guys in the back end of your bullpen. That is insane. They took this Royals model and put it on steroids times 10. You got guys that legitimately strike out 14 to 16 batters per 9 innings. They don't allow hits. And they have, Chapman's control is kind of iffy, but Andrew Miller's control is really good. Dylan Betances, his control is pretty good. I mean, these guys just throw hard, too. Especially Chapman. No one has thrown more pitches over 100 miles an hour in baseball since he came in the league than Aroldis Chapman. And he's got that slider, and he's got a decent changeup that he's worked on over the last couple of years. What's crazy to think is, in all likelihood, Chapman's going to be their closer. There was a lot of concern about working Miller and Betances as much as they did, because they worked them a lot. They were constantly out there, seemed like every single day. Now, with you got this kind of depth, you can legitimately pitch Betances and Miller 1 to 2 innings every other day. Got plenty of rest. And then days Chapman needs a rest, you got Betances and Miller sitting right there. I don't think there is a better back end of the bullpen trio right now in baseball than Betances, Miller, and Chapman. This trade and what the Yankees have managed to assemble in the back is crazy. You don't see these guys, and the amount of strikeouts these guys accumulate. I mean, they don't let anyone on base. The amount of outs, the amount of contact they prevent is going to win the Yankees so many extra games this year because they will not blow leads. Think about this. 1 year, Aroldis Chapman had a K per 9 of 17. I don't think he's had a K per 9 lower than 15 in his entire career. It's insanity what the Yankees are going to feature right now. Now, does this make them the best team in the East is the biggest question. Because currently looking at the Blue Jays, losing David Price was a big blow, and they didn't re-sign him. They lost him to a divisional rival. Now, I think if you look at lineup by lineup, the Blue Jays lineup, I think you have to concede, is the best lineup in the AL East. Power-wise, I mean, it's with guys like, they're going to have Devin Travis back next year, who was great till he got hurt. You're going to have Troy Tulowitzki for a whole year, hopefully, if he doesn't get hurt. You got the reigning MVP in Josh Donaldson. You got Russell Martin behind the dish. Edwin Encarnacion. Jose Bautista. I mean, Kevin Pillar. I mean, he's a great outfielder, too. And it's so deep. Their lineup is so deep. But you look at the back end of their bullpen, it's a lot of youth. A lot of question. So there's some uneasiness there. You lose Mark Burley. Can R.A. Dickey repeat what he did last year? Is Marco Estrada going to do what he did last year? There's a lot of uneasiness there with the questions with the rotation, which would keep me, when you had David Price, it put them over the top. Because you had that guy every 5th day. It's win day. That's what you would call it. So that keeps me from putting over the top. Now you look at the Red Sox. They have their bullpen's good too. It's not close to the Yankees good, but they have some guys in the back. I mean, Junichi Chizawa, he's no slouch. Koji Uehara, now they don't have to pitch him as much as they did. They can help let him rest, make him more effective. I mean, this is a guy that, is one of the best closers in baseball. I remember on MLB Network's top 10 relief pitchers in baseball right now, Koji Uehara 1 year fronted it based on his statistic analysis through the shredder. So, I mean, this guy's good. So you can rest him up and use him. He's an effective reliever. And then you got Craig Kimbrell, who you could legitimately make an argument for, and I believe is the best closer in baseball over the last 5 years. He was better than Mariano Rivera and Mariano Rivera's last couple years in the league. That's how good he was. You can just look at the statistics. They don't lie. So they got a good back end of the bullpen. And you can look at their lineup. Xander Bogaerts, I mean, you got to imagine some of those doubles he hit last year is going to, and his ability on base and he hits for a good average is going to eventually turn to some homers next year. David Ortiz seems to hit 25 to 30 home runs every year, so he's a good hitter. You don't know what you got. Behind the plate is still a bit of a question for them. How's Blake Swihart gonna do? But they got so many good outfielders. I mean, you got Rusney Castillo, you got Jackie Bradley Jr., you got Mookie Betts. When's maybe Yon Makata comes up this year and plays a little bit. But they're gonna put Hanley Ramirez at first this year, which I think could help his bat a little bit, him not having to worry about playing the outfield, and maybe Pablo Sandoval can look like he did before. But nonetheless, they have a good lineup. It was a lineup that underperformed extremely bad, but they have a pretty good lineup. And now with that ace guy at the top, where you could slide Porcello back down, you could slide Clay Buchholz where he should have been. He shouldn't have been your ace to begin with. And you got, Roenius Elias, who's good. He had some good starts with the Mariners. I mean, he's a nice pitcher to slot in there. And on top of you got Eddie Rodriguez, who was good. He showed some flashes of brilliance last year. You could make a case that, the Red Sox are legitimately the best team in the East because they got a good back of the bullpen, they have a good lineup, and the rotation having that arguably the best pitcher in the division. I would say David Price is the best pitcher, the best ace in that division, the AL East. I mean, you can make a legitimate case that he puts the Red Sox over the top. But here's the thing. Here's why I think you have to consider the Yankees, as of now, are the best team in the AL East. The Royals, you look at their team, when they were winning, how they won the World Series and how got to the World Series the year before, they featured a solid defensive team with a pitching staff that was just good enough to get the ball over to their bullpen that was fearsome. They shortened the game to 6 innings every day. With these three guys, on top of the guys they have backing up, these Chapman, Miller, and Betances aren't slouches either. I mean, this was their strength. They're going to win so many games because now they don't have to hope, let's hope CeCe can go 6. Let's hope Tanaka can go 8 and bail out our bullpen for a day. Give them a break because they pitch so much because, Pineda was inconsistent. You want to watch Luis Severino's innings. So, having this staff of horses in your back to where, you could legitimately pitch Betances 2 innings a couple days a week. And you could pitch, Miller a couple innings. He can get out righties and lefties at a clip. And you got this guy in Chapman back there. I mean, they're going to shorten so many ball games, which I think is going to help mass their pitching staff so much that it could potentially, I would put them as the best team in the East right now, simply for the fact that the Royals won with this same mantra, they won with the same formula, and they have a better back end of the bullpen than the Royals do. Because, I mean, you don't get, with the amount of swings and misses these guys generate, with the kind of stuff these guys feature, it's insanity to think that 3 of these guys are together. And how they're going to shorten ball games for the Yankees. And the Yankees, I mean, you look at their team, Jacoby Ellsbury, Brett Gardner, Starlin Castro is going to be, a Yankee, and, that ballpark could help them because Wrigley Field can be your best friend or your worst enemy. When the wind's blowing out, balls fly, but when it's blowing in, it's stopping everything. So, he's going to be playing at a smaller ballpark, and smaller ballparks in general. I mean, playing at Fenway and Camden and Toronto, could help his power a little bit. He's going to be at second base. So, I mean, that can help him out. And Didi Gregorius had a good second half last year. And then, Mark Teixeira had a good year last year. And A-Rod had a good year last year. Hopefully Beltran is healthy for him. And Brian McCann had a lot better year in his second year with the Yankees. And on top of their bullpen is fearsome as it is. Having a rotation that's still iffy it's not as big as deal for me anymore to not say for right now with the bullpen they feature, and some of the moves they've done that I think they're the top dog in the AL East as of right now. I would think they'd have to win because they're going to shorten so many ball games and they have so much depth and the kind of stuff these guys feature. I think there's no way you cannot think of them as the best team in the East right now because of Toronto's questions in the rotation. The Orioles haven't done much. Are they going to bring back Chris Davis? Their rotation is still, they're still waiting on their prospects, guys like Kevin Gausman to really flourish. And the Red Sox did a great job, and they have a great lineup. But I think, in the Rays, they weren't as bad as their record indicates last year, but I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the Red Sox and the Yankees as much as maybe like the Blue Jays can make a run towards it. So, yeah. I honestly think the Yankees, because this is it's going to be a potential historic bullpen. And the Royals, like I said, with this new formula of trying games and making them 6 innings now, winning with a so-so pitching staff and going all the way to the World Series might be the new thing. The days of hoping you get a stable of 5 guys that can go 7 innings and only give up 2 earned runs or less, I think those are dead. The days of what the Royals are doing where they're just trying to, herd in all these, former starters turned relievers that excel is what everyone's going to do. And the Yankees did that times 10 because they didn't get former starters that failed, not excelling in a bullpen with like a Wade Davis or, like a Chris Medlin. They went and they got guys, 3 guys that can be closers for any team. And you can make a case for any of them if they were closing for other teams, accumulating 45, 50 saves a year. They're the best closer in baseball. And they feature all 3 of them in the back of their bullpen. So, it's a crazy thing. And you legitimately have to think as of right now with the moves the Yankees made and how the division sits that you would have to consider the Yankees the favorites because of how much they're going to shorten games and how many games they're going to win by shorting games as much as they have. Based on the 3 guys they put in the back end of the bullpen. So it's a crazy move. Even if they lose Chapman for a month and a half to suspension, because he's going to get suspended, because baseball's got to do something about this domestic violence. They can't do it like the NFL and just sweep under the rug and be like, okay, it's good enough. We're not going to do anything. They have to suspend him and do some kind of disciplinary action because they can't let that go by the wayside and have a black scar on their face like the NFL did. But as of right now, the Yankees, it's crazy to fathom that these 3 guys, Miller, Betances, and Chapman, are all in the same bullpen with one another. So, New York Yankees acquire Aroldis Chapman, and the Yankees are going for it this year. They're not messing around, and their strength was their bullpen last year. When I was questioning them after they traded Justin Wilson to the Tigers, why would you break up and traded Adam Warren? Why would you break up a staff of guys that were good for you last year? And They went and they fixed that problem, and now they got 3 legitimate guys at the back of that bullpen that any team would dream to have. So, New York Yankees acquire Aroldis Chapman from the Cincinnati Reds. I'm John Check at Baseball Central. Be sure to check out BaseballCentral.com for more breaking news and all the baseball articles and information you need. Have a good one, guys.